Okay, welcome back. This is the fourth video in a series of videos that I'm doing on the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Title 15, Section 1692. This is Section 1692C. And the notice, once again, I am not a lawyer or an attorney. This is not legal advice. It is for educational purposes only. And it is your responsibility to learn the law and to know what the law says. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing these videos, is to help people to learn the law and to understand the law a little bit through your own looking at it, understanding it, and knowing what it means. Anyway, Section 1692C, communication in connection with debt collection. And Section A, communication with the consumer generally, without the prior consent of the consumer given directly to the debt collector or the express permission of a court of competent jurisdiction. A debt collector may not communicate with the consumer in connection with the collection of any debt, 1. At any unusual time or place, or a time or place known or which should be known to be inconvenient to the consumer. In the absence of knowledge of circumstances to the contrary, a debt collector shall assume that the convenient time for communicating with the consumer is after 8 o'clock a.m. and before 9 o'clock p.m. local time at the consumer's location. 2. If the debt collector knows the consumer is represented by an attorney with respect to such debt and has knowledge of or can readily ascertain such attorney's name and address, unless the attorney fails to respond within a reasonable period of time to a communication from the debt collector, or unless the attorney consents to direct communication with the consumer. Okay, so they're not supposed to A debt collector may not communicate with a consumer in connection with the collection of any debt if the debt collector knows the consumer is represented by an attorney with respect to such debt and has knowledge of or can readily ascertain such attorney's name and address. Unless the attorney fails to respond within a reasonable period of time to a communication from the debt collector, or unless the attorney consents to a direct communication with the consumer. Now, the attorney would only do that with the consumer's permission, of course. Otherwise, the attorney would be like not representing you, would he? Or 3, at the consumer's place of employment, if the debt collector knows or has reason to know that the consumer's employer prohibits the consumer from receiving such communication. And I would think most places of work would kind of frown on employees getting calls when they're at work. B. Communication with third parties, except as provided in Section 804. And 804 is another form of this same statute that's written in a different number format. So, except as provided in Section 1692B, which was the, I believe, the location information section, which was on the last video. Okay, except as provided in Section 1692B, without the prior consent of the consumer given directly to the debt collector or the express permission of a court of competent jurisdiction, or as reasonably necessary to effectuate a post-judgment judicial remedy. A debt collector may not communicate in connection with the collection of any debt with any person other than the consumer, his attorney, a consumer reporting agency if otherwise permitted by law, the creditor, the attorney of the creditor, or the attorney of the debt collector. Okay, so that limits the a debt collector may not communicate with anybody else other than those, and a consumer reporting agency would be like a credit bureau or something like that. C. Ceasing communication. If a consumer notifies a debt collector in writing that the consumer refuses to pay a debt, or that the consumer wishes the debt collector to cease further communication with the consumer, the debt collector shall not communicate further with the consumer with respect to such debt, except 1. To advise the consumer that the debt collector's further efforts are being terminated. 2. To notify the consumer that the debt collector or creditor may invoke specified remedies which are ordinarily invoked by such debt collector or creditor. So that means they can't threaten to do something at that point that they would not ordinarily do. So if ordinarily in their course of business to take people to court, then that's something that they can't say they're going to do. If they're out of the state, if you're in one state and they're across the country, it's not likely they're going to probably take you to court unless it's a huge amount of credit or debt. So you'd have to show that you'd have to get that information in discovery probably. 3. Where applicable, to notify the consumer that the debt collector or creditor intends to invoke a specified remedy. If such notice from the consumer is made by mail, notification shall be complete upon receipt. That's the notice that you sent to them to cease communication. Consumer defined. For the purpose of this section, the term consumer includes the consumer's spouse, parent, if the consumer is a minor, guardian, executor, or administrator. Okay, and so that will conclude this video in this section, 1692C. Once again, this is not legal advice, and it is only my opinion. It is your responsibility to learn the law and find out what the law is and how the law can help you. And I tell you, if you learn these laws, you can start putting money in your pocket, because the debt collectors are breaking the law all the time. And once you learn how to hold them accountable, you can send them letters, maybe have to go to court, but maybe put $1,000 to $3,000 in your pocket for every violation. Anyway, if you want to get more information, look at the description box below and go to my website, creditforbadcreditforyou.com, and there's a whole bunch of more information there, and you can find out how to get signed up for a free webinar and learn how you can be on free group calls on Tuesday nights and get a ton more information to help you in this war. Anyway, thanks for listening. Talk to you later.